goes on, it goes on, it goes on.
I love guitars. I have quite a few of them. I am a guitar player at heart. I love guitars. I love playing guitar. I love everything about guitar. I like mixing guitar. I like making guitar music. But I don't own a single analog amplifier. I don't have a solid state amplifier. I don't have a tube amplifier. I own one amplifier, and it is a modeling amplifier, and that is it. Why? Because digital is the way of the future, and digital sounds so good. I never needed it. Before you come at me, I'm a guitar player at heart. It's how I started. But I'm going to teach you how to get great sounding guitars, great sounding mixes, great sounding amps using nothing else but a guitar, your interface, and your laptop. Now let's get into it. Before we get into the video, if you would like to know how to get 1,000 streams on Spotify in less than a month, click the link in the description, and it's my free gift to you. I made a PDF guide with step-by-step instructions on how to get 1,000 streams or more in less than a month, even if you're starting with no audience. And if you even have an audience, you can double that with this guide. This guide works if you have no audience, and this guide continues to work even if you have a massive audience. Secret, it takes a little bit of time, but it's worth it. So take that PDF guide. It is my gift to you for watching this video and for clicking that subscribe button below if you haven't yet. So click the subscribe button, download the PDF guide. It's absolutely free. It is my gift to you. Go follow it, go build your audience. Now let's get into the video. Hi, I'm Andrew Barr, and welcome to Producing in the Box, where I teach you how to make great sounding music with nothing else but your laptop and a microphone. So let's get right into it. So I don't own a single amp. I only use amp sims. I do have one digital amp that I use. It's a digital modeling amp, and I use it when I play out live, and that's it. Other than that, I use my floorboard modeler, or I am all in the box, of course. I am a strong advocate for doing everything in the box unit, and I'm talking even down to guitars and bass and all of these things. You don't need real amps anymore if you want great sounding tone. And in fact, I think you're better off without it. So let's jump in. In order to get good sounding tones, though, I'm gonna divide everything up in groups, and you'll see it at the bottom of the screen. And I will have subgroups as well. So group one, it needs to sound good at the source. You're gonna hear me say this a lot. And when I say a lot, I mean a lot. You're going to hear me say this all the time. No matter what it is, it needs to sound good at the source. Now, you probably heard a lot of other people tell you this, but they don't tell you what actually sounds good at the source. And when you're a beginner or even intermediate, and sometimes even advanced, you have no idea what actually sounds good at the source. What's going to sound good at the end result? So guitars, I've split this up into a couple different groups, okay? Number one, first and foremost, it is the chords and the notes that you pick. Song arrangement is going to be number one. It has to be good. It has to flow well. So let's take a listen to what these guys have done. They are great at writing songs and great at writing melodies and chords that fit with the song well, that leave room for the vocals. So take a listen. Now this is with nothing. This is just the raw DI tracks going in. Like I said, it needs to sound good at the source. See how they sound open and still yet full? That's what we're looking for. Play around with the chords, play around with different inversions, play around with it, and really have a lot of fun with it, and see what fits the song best. Because, you know, just playing a bunch of triads probably isn't going to work for some songs, and it's probably not going to work for other songs, and it probably will work for this song. It's play around with it and figure out what sounds best, and go with that. But I would say a good starting place for this is to take out the note the singer is singing. So if you're playing a G chord and the singer is singing a B over top of that, that seems to be the resolving note constantly. I would take the B out of that chord and let the singer do that. That's just, it's not really a rule of thumb. It's just something to play around with and try out. Next is double tracking. As you can see, I already have it here. Your guitar player needs to play on the left and then needs to play on the right. Just play the same thing again and just pan one hard to the left and one hard to the right. It's pretty simple, but it adds so much to the song. If you're not double tracking your guitars, you should start today. And it's just such a simple trick. You cannot duplicate this and bring it down because it'll just make the same track louder. And I will show you. We're going to bring this down. I'm going to bring this down and copy it over. I'm going to select this one. I'm going to bring it to the right. And then I'm only going to listen to those two. So it's the same. One's in the left, one's in the right, but it's the same take. It's still up the middle. It's just the same thing, but louder. You can't do that. You have to have the guitar player do this twice, okay? Once in the left and once in the right. And the reason it's like that is because we as humans are not perfect. We can't play it exactly the same again. And that's a good thing. It adds stereo width and imaging. And it sounds like this. Number 3 in the sub is the guitar player needs to be tight. If you got to do some editing, go in there and do some editing. But the guitar player needs to be tight, as tight as they possibly can be. Especially when you're double tracking, you want to get it as close as you possibly can. But of course, not perfect because we want that stereo imaging. Next is gain input, and that is the last on. It needs to sound good in the source. So that is fourth and final is gain input. How much gain is going into your interface before it ever hits your software? A good rule of thumb is not clipping. That's a great place to start. And some amp sims will actually have a good golden spot, like where it's yellow. That's probably where you want to be at, is yellow. I would palm mute as hard as you can, and then go off of that. All right, the next step is amp sims. There are tons of great amp sims out there. There are most likely some that come with your DAW. Even if you're in GarageBand or Logic, Studio One, Cubase. I mean, most of them have amp sims, and it doesn't really matter which one. Just play around with them and figure out which one works best for you. In this song, I used one called STL Tonality. These guys make some great plugins. This is the Will Putney signature pack. I got it because I wanted the detail emulator, and oh my goodness, it sounds fantastic. So now we have our raw DI going into the amp sim, and this is what it sounds like now. And I'm going to just solo one of the guitars and bring it to the center, just so that way we can hear what I'm actually doing when I'm playing around with the knobs. So that way I don't have to play around with both of them at the same time. So. There's tons of knobs and things that you could tweak on this, but I usually keep the bass, middle, and treble right up the middle, and I'll tell you why in a second. I just adjust the volume and I adjust the gain in whatever channel is on first before I do anything else. And I might go back to these knobs later, okay? And I did just a little bit. I'll tell you why I don't touch those until a little bit later here in just a second. So let's just play around with the gain and with the volume and with the channels and see what we like. I know I like this sound, but let's just play around and see. Go to the lead channel. Back to the rhythm channel. It's pretty clean. I like it right about there. That sounds good to me. That's what I like. One good rule of thumb is if you think you need a little more gain, I would wait on the gain, because less gain stacked with more guitars equals a more tighter, nice gain. So if we have our guitars like this, and let's just say we do the same to the other one as well, put these back, it's just going to be a little flubby. At least for my ears. So let's bring this back down, bring it back to like a 4. Bring this one back down to like a 4. And they don't have to be exactly the same on either side. In fact, I recommend that you change it up just a little bit so it adds even more stereo width. And let's take a listen to it now. It's still pretty gritty. I'd say it's even more gritty than just one by itself, because you're stacking another guitar on top of it and adding just another layer of grit. So I would go a little less on the gain than what you think you should. All right, next is cab simulators. This is the most important part. If you get nothing else from this video, get just this little piece from it because this is important. This shapes your tone more than anything else that I'm going to teach you in this entire video. This is the most important step. It matters more than amps. It matters more than your EQs. It matters more than your guitars. It matters more than the pickups and the strings that you use. Your cabs are the most important thing that you can play around with. And this is why I don't adjust these knobs, because of how different each one of these cabs will make the sound change. Now, I'll go through a couple examples for you real quick. So I'm just going to select a couple of these cabs. I could even load my own IRs if I wanted to. But I'm just going to select some of these cabs because they sound great. They all do. But they're all different. And take a listen to what they sound like when they're all different. So I'm going to bring this back to the center. All right, so we're going to start on cab 1, and we're just going to cycle our way through. It's so different. We'll go into a bass cab for fun. Back to cab 1. So I liked cab 1 and 3, but this seems like it has a little bit of brittleness to it. So we'll go back to cab 1. And 4 cab is, or cab 4 is just way too much in the mid-range. Yep, I like that one. I like cab 1. Now I can go back and adjust some of these if I want to, but I think it sounds great about where it is. I wrote off the bass just a little bit. Now we're going to go into grouping, and or bus groups, or just busing. Your DAW may call it something different. I know Logic called it grouping. Pro Tools calls it busing. But basically what you're doing is you're taking all of these tracks and you're putting them to one bus, and then that bus goes to the master track. So figure out how to do that in your DAW, and there's plenty of videos online. I'll show you how to do it here in Studio One. It's pretty simple. Sometimes grouping means the faders will work with one another, but they're still not going to the same bus. So you want to make sure that all of your channels are going to the same bus. So this is the easiest way that I found through Studio One. So, and I want to do this to all of my guitars here, all of my rhythm guitars. Okay, so I have these ones here. And I also have these ones here. And I want all of those in the same bus. And I'll show you why here in a second. So in Studio One, it's pretty simple. You go down here, you hold Shift and select the last one. It'll select everything in between. And then you right click, and then I click Pack to Folder. Then we're going to call this folder Rhythm Guitars. Then I'm just going to color it the same blue that the other ones were. And then I'm going to select this little icon here, click it, and add a bus channel. And it just added a bus channel for me and routed everything inside of here to that bus channel. And now I can collapse this in a folder if I want to, get it out of the way. Makes a lot of sense. Makes it super, super easy. Okay, so then I can just select this and click X, and then bam, my mixer is shown here. So all of these, and I'll come in here, you can see all of this is sent to the rhythm guitar bus. All of these are. And then this right here is the rhythm guitar bus. So now I'm going to do my next steps, which is EQing and compression. But we're going to start with EQing. So I'm hearing a couple frequencies here that are just a little bit harsh, and I'll go through and EQ them live for you, and you can see what I'm doing, how I'm figuring it out, and what I think sounds good. So first things first, I wanna cut the lows. I know that I want the lows to get out of the way for the bass, because the bass is going to sit anywhere from like 80 to 60, depending especially where my kick is too. And I kind of want to cut everything out. I want a pretty decently hard cut, right about like 70 to 80. And we'll EQ them in solo for now, but most of the time I'd actually EQ them in the song. 4K sounds a little bit harsh to me, and let's find 4K, and it's about 3.5. I'm going to cut that frequency. Yep. Pretty good. There's another one a little bit higher. I'd say probably around like 6K. There it is. There's that whistle. It's actually another 3.5, pretty close to it. So I'm just going to notch these two. And I'm hearing a little bit of boxiness, and I'm going to say that's probably around 200. Let's take a listen. Yep. Just going to cut that out. Hearing one more. $1K is just a little harsh for me, so I'm going to scoop it out just a little bit. So let's take what we've done and take a listen, and I will toggle the EQ on and off. EQ's on, now it's off. Let's listen to it in the chorus. With it off, that was super harsh. Super tight. Oh, yeah, especially this little guy right here. They needed to go. All right, so now let's actually take a listen to what it sounds like in the mix, because I recommend that you actually EQ in the mix. It goes on, it goes on, it goes on. Oh, yeah. Cleans it up so much better. I made just some slight adjustments to make it fit better in the mix. Now, I took out a lot of high frequencies with that EQ, and that's good because they were a little bit harsh. But I kind of miss them in the mix just a little bit. I kind of want just a little sparkle back, and I don't want to bring those frequencies back because I didn't like them. I cut them. One good way to do this is to take a digital EQ like this and cut the frequencies that you don't like to a certain extent. Find something that sounds good. And then if you notice that you kind of cut this just a little too much and it was harsh, you can get an analog emulated EQ. And this is what I do. And so I will just pull up like an FGN, it's just an Eve, and then I will find that frequency that I had cut, and I will bring it back with a little bit of warmth and saturation that an analog emulated piece of gear like this will bring out. So I know it was around 3,000 hertz, but I'm just going to boost this a little bit, and then I'm going to sweep around and see what sounds best. But I'm going to do this in the mix. It goes on. It goes on. It goes on. That sounds pretty good to me. Those are just slight, tiny moves. Let's see what it sounds like in the verse. Pick me up from the ashes. Oh yeah, it's making a massive, massive difference. And that is a warm style sounding EQ. This one's actually pretty harsh for what it is, but it has a lot of saturation, and that's what we're looking for because we don't want it to be super harsh. We want to bring those high frequencies back, but without them being like just punching you in the face. That's just obnoxious. Nobody likes being punched in the face, especially with something that we truly love like guitars. All right, now the next step that I do is compression. And this one is about the final piece of the puzzle. There's one extra special treat, and I will show you that at the end of the video, and it made my mixes from sounding amateur to pro like that. But until we get there, I bring in something like an FG Stress. It is a compressor, is all it does, and I'm doing this for two reasons. Number one, I want to cut the transients out. There aren't a lot of transients once you have a guitar going into any sort of gated or gained amplifier. The gain and the saturation in the amplifier kind of cuts a lot of the transients out anyway, but there's still some that I want to take control over. Number two, second reason I want to do this is because I want to, since I bust all of my guitars into one bus, and now I'm EQing that bus, and now I'm compressing the same bus, I want the verse guitars to sound equally as loud as the chorus guitars. And I don't want indifferences in between there. First, I start with volume, then I control the rest of it with compression. When the chorus comes in, I still want it to be just a little bit louder, a little bit more boomier, and just a little bit more in your face, but I don't want to do too much. I probably want 1 to 2 dB of gain reduction is probably what I'm looking for. But use your ears, not your eyes. We'll pop it up here real quick. I'll turn it off, and then I'll turn it on. You hit the cure. Barely touching it here. When it hits here, I want to see about 1 to 2. Turn it down just a little bit here. Let's have a mid-release here. I'll put the attack at like a 4. So I'm getting about 2 to 3 right there, and let's see what the difference is. Just bring it up just a little bit, make it a little louder, and then what about the chorus? It's actually about the same. It's about the same volume. It's a little louder, and since it is an analog emulated piece of software, it is adding a little bit of coloration. So now I have this compressor in here. I am blending this and this, and so they sound pretty good going from one to another. You're seeing a jump in volume here, but yet you're not hearing a jump in volume because the compressor's taking care of it. And it sounds really, really good, and it's knocking down some of those transients. Let's see what it sounds like in the mix, because that's the most important part. It goes on. It goes on. It goes on. I'm starving for direction. It's a suicide infection. Now, I could leave it there. I could. It sounds great. I think it sounds fantastic. I like it. I really, really do. But there's one extra step that made my mixes from sounding amateur to making them sound pro. And that, my friends, is analog saturation. Oh my gosh, I know what you're saying. Oh, but you produce in the box. I know I do. You can have analog emulation in the box. It's possible because these things sound so good as they are. So I'm going to go into the harmonic section, and you can do this with anything. You can actually do this, and I'm going to show you how to do it with a plugin that's right in Studio One. But for now, I'm going to show you my usual. So I bring in this virtual channel here, which just makes it sound like it's on an analog board, which it does barely anything. Turn it off. I can hear it saturating like 6K, 7K, just a tiny, tiny bit. Let me bring it up so you can really hear it. And it seems to be bringing up the mids just a little bit. It's a little mid forward. Not much, but just a little bit. Now here is the special sauce. I'm going to bring in this guy right here. It's just a preamp is all it is. But I am going to turn up the saturation knob until it sounds freaking awesome. I'm also going to flip the little push switch on. Now, if you don't have these plugins, they're from the Slate Digital All Access Pass. I highly recommend you get it. It's $9.99 a month, but you don't have to have them to get good sounding mixes. I'm going to show you how to do the exact same thing with a plugin built inside of Studio One that comes with the DAW. So let's play around with saturation. And we can crank it all the way up. Kind of sounds like crap. Oh yeah, we're adding some warmth there. Let's turn it off. Turn it back on. Oh yeah, it's bringing out those mids. It is making it sound really, really good. Let's see what it sounds like in the chorus. Turn it off. And then back on. Listen to the difference in that. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Let's listen to it in the mix.
It goes on. It goes on.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It goes on.
Wow. Yeah, makes a massive, massive difference. All right, so like I promised, you don't have to have these plugins to do this, and I will show you how to do it without them. So I'm just going to turn this off, and I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to leave my EQ and the compression the same, and I am going to pull up a plugin called Red Light Distortion. This thing's freaking fantastic. It comes with Studio One Professional, and I think it also comes with Studio One Artist as well. Take a listen to what it can do to guitars. So I'm going to turn this plugin off, solo these guitars, and then we're gonna play around with it. So. Oh yeah, it's sounding great. You can take a screenshot of this and copy these settings and play around with it yourself. It's absolutely phenomenal. If you have Studio One, definitely got to check this plugin out. It's absolutely great. I know Logic Pro has some very similar plugins. You can use any overdrive distortion plugin that you have in your DAW to do the exact same thing. You want just a light bit of distortion, any kind of tube saturation. If there's a button on there that sounds like that or looks like that, go for it. And just play around. Use what you got first. This made my mixes sound phenomenal. So let's play around and see what it sounds like in the mix.
It goes on.
Oh yeah.
It goes on.
All right, so that is about it for this video. If you have any questions, please leave them in the description below. As always, click the link in the description if you are interested in that free guide that I explained in the beginning of the video. The song you heard in the video is in the description below as well. Click on it, take a listen to it. The band is phenomenal, and you guys should totally check out everything else that they've done.
It goes on.